guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how I created this really simple matte look. It's really easy and it's just got a pop of red in the center, but you could really substitute that with any color you choose. You could do a pop of orange in the center, a pop of green in the center. I've just chosen red today because that's a shade that I've been really into lately. But yeah, it's a really simple matte eye look. If you wanted, you could also take shimmer in the center of the lid to kind of glam this up for a more special occasion, but this is really wearable, as is for day-to-day life. If you're interested in how I achieve this look, then please keep on watching. As you can see, I've already set down some of my base layer products. I used the Maybelline Super Cushion Ultra Cover Cushion Foundation, and I wear the shade Natural Beige, and then I used the Lasting Finish 25-hour breathable concealer from Rimmel just underneath my eyes and a little bit around my nose, and I set my whole face with the RCMA No Colour Powder just so that nothing is tacky and moves. Next I'll be using the Hoola bronzer from Benefit and this brush from Real Techniques and just bronzing the perimeters of my face. I'm not being particularly intense with this, just a light dust along the outside to give a little bit of colour. And I'm just going along the jawline, and also I'll take it on the forehead as well. I'm just doing this for a little bit of colour. I'm not trying to create any extreme sculpting or contouring with this. It's just to kind of give some shape to the face. And I'll also be taking that down the neck as well. Next I'll be using this blush from Becca Cosmetics, and it's just in the shade Flower Child, and I'll be taking that on this highlighter brush from Real Techniques along the apples of my cheeks. I kind of take my blush really high on the face, but that's just the way I like it. You can do it the way you prefer it. I feel like this kind of lifts the face better and gives a more youthful look in my opinion. I'll also be taking this a little bit across the top of the forehead just to even out the face and give it more colour, and also across the front of the nose here just for a little bit more of a sun-kissed glow. Next I'll be going into eyes, and I'll be using the Too Faced Matte Chocolate Chip palette and the BH Cosmetics Take Me Back to Brazil palette. For the BH Cosmetics palette, I'll only be using this red shade here, so you don't have to have this palette. You could really use any palette you have with a nice pop of red in it, or a single red shadow. And in the chocolate chip palette, I'm just going to be using all of the brown like matte shades, so you can use any brown matte shades. First I'll be taking this concealer brush from Real Techniques and the white chocolate shade, which is this one just at the top of the palette here, the large pan, and I'll be taking that over the entire lid just to even out the colour of the lid and give me a nice matte even base to work with. Now that I've laid down that shade, I'm going to be taking the red from the BH Cosmetics Take Me to Brazil palette and just placing that kind of along the outer third of the lid, about here. I'm just kind of placing that on the outer half of the lid. I'm not taking it all the way to the very edge here, just because I'm going to take darker colours out there, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm kind of packing it into the centre along here because that's where I want the pop of red to be. Next, I'm going to be taking the shade Semi-Sweet from the Chocolate Chip palette, which is just this brown shade right underneath white chocolate here. I'm going to be taking that on the same brush as I used earlier, just dusted off kind of the excess red shadow, and I'm going to place that right next to the red shadow we placed just slightly more towards the outer corner this time. Packing that right on top so they kind of blend together. And finally, the last colour I'll be using is this shade here. This is just the shade Triple Fudge, and I'll be taking that to the very edge of the eye and kind of flicking it a little bit outwards and upwards, just because I feel like that's really flattering on most eye shapes, kind of lifts and opens the eye. Now that I've placed down all those colours, I'm going to be blending them out with this thin brush from Real Techniques. And I'm going to start by blending the red shade first, just because that is the lightest shade, and then working my way to blending the darker shades, just so my brush doesn't get muddy and take that dark shade all over the lid. Now that I've kind of blended out all those shadows a little bit better, I kind of want to intensify that red, so I'm taking that brush that we used to kind of blend it all together, and I'll be taking a little bit of red on the brush and just sweeping it, focusing on the front first and then brushing it upwards and outwards, just to bring a little bit more colour to that look. And again, I'm just taking the same brush as we used earlier, just the concealer brush with that same white chocolate colour, and kind of brushing it along the inner corners of the lid again, just to kind of blur the red into the white chocolate shade. I'm also taking that brush along the edge of the eyeshadow here, just so that I can further blur the edges. Next, I'm going to be taking my favourite liquid liner. This is the Hyper Sharp Wing Liner from Maybelline, and it's just a nice brush tip liner, and I'll be creating a wing on both of my lids. Next, I'll be doing my brows using the Morphe M165 angled brush and using the Colourpop brow pomade in the shade Black and Brown. It just looks like this. I always draw on the tail of my brow first, that way that is the most product on my brow on the tail, because I don't really have a tail. And then I take the excess product on my brush and kind of run it through the front of my brow so that it's not as intense at the front. If I put too much product at the front of my brows, it kind of makes my brows like too aggressive and they look really filled in and angry. So I try and not put as much product at the front of my brows just because I don't want too intense of a look. Now that I've done my brows, I'm going to be highlighting my face with Lunch Money, and this is a Super Shock cheek product from Colourpop, and I'll be using an angled highlighter brush from Real Techniques. Taking on the tops of my cheekbones, I'll use my finger to put it on my nose here. I'll just take it on my cupid's bow using my finger as well. I totally forgot to contour my nose, so I'm just going to quickly go in and do that now using the same Hoola bronzer as I used earlier and an angled like shader brush from Real Techniques. I'm just going to take the smallest amount of product and run it down the sides of my nose. I'm also going to take that down the bottom of the nose here just to shorten it. I'm also going to put it right above the tip just to kind of lift it a little bit more. And I'm blending that up into the brow bone as well, so that it kind of blends into the rest of the face. I'll be taking this shading brush from Real Techniques and taking the same Lunch Money highlighter and putting that on my inner corners and on my brow bone. Next, I'll be taking my favourite lashes, and these are just some flared lashes from Kiss, and I'll be using my Duo Lash Glue to pop those on the eyes. Now that I've applied those fake lashes, I'm just sweeping my dirty shader brush along the outer corner of my lower lash line just to balance out the look a little bit better. And that is all of the eye look complete. The lip gloss that I'll be using today is this NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Madeline. It's a really beautiful like neutral brownie kind of shade, just like this. It's not too pinky and it's quite neutral, so it flatters many looks and many skin tones. And that is the completed look. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment anything you'd like to see from me in future down below, subscribe to see more content from me, and hopefully I'll see you in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!